Hello and welcome to my tutorial on how to create the Ara and Deedee Catching the Stars game that I might have showed you before, and if not, here this is a fun opportunity, and we'll get right into it. So for you, I'm just gonna make sure this is shared. You'll have a green remix button here. So I've already got the template ready to go with some of the sprites that you need. And this is ready for you to explore. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click, so will click on the remix button and then you can head inside. So we're going to do that. See inside right now. So now that we're in here, we can see that we've got Ara, we've got Deedee, and we've got some stars. So the stars are just hidden up here right now. We've got them hidden, and we'll come explore that in a few seconds. So we're gonna head back over to Ara. So we know that we're coding Ara when we can see that Ara is highlighted blue. We know that Ara is right up here. And the idea here is Ara is going to support or just tell us a little bit of an introduction to this project, and then Deedee is going to be controlled by the arrows in your mouse on your keyboard to move back and forth and catch some falling stars. So that's the main idea from this. So one of the cool things that we've had a chance to do is I've worked with the author of the book, and I've got some really cool sprites here, sprite costumes that you can explore with. And so if you want to have, Ara taking some notes, then we can do that. The same with Deedee, and we'll explore those in a few minutes. So I'm going to go and I'm going to start off, and I really like Ara sitting like this or standing like that. So I'm going to use the green flag is clicked. And so in coding, we want to be very clear in our step-by-step what we're going to be doing. And so we're going to tell Ara, first of all, we're going to tell Ara which costume she's going to be wearing. And so she's going to be wearing the 0 to 9. And so I just go over to costume, and we've got Ara 3 is actually what I want. So 0 to 9 would have been her sitting there thinking about things. But I think I like this Ara 3 one better. So it's a good thing I checked. So I'm going to go over here and you'll see a little drop down. So Ara 3. And if I press the green flag, you'll see that Ara 3 is there. In my other example, I have Ara 1. So she's just standing there like that, a little bit of a superhero pose. So I'm going to use this one. Great. And so now I'm going to have her tell us a little bit about what we're going to do today. So she's going to say hello, and then we're going to maybe say, she could introduce herself. So my name is Ara. And then what we could maybe do is, she can introduce herself, and then Deedee can introduce themselves as well. And so I'm just going to hop over to Deedee. Deedee doesn't have any code, so again, I've selected on Deedee, and I see now that Deedee is up here, a little bit of a silhouette, and so I can go with when the green flag is clicked, and I'm going to go into control because I actually want to wait a little bit, and you'll see why in a second. So I'm going to say I'm Deedee. So if I run this, I'm just going to make it nice and big. If I run this, hello, my name is Ara, and then I'm Deedee. And you'll see that they were sort of overlapping in time. And the reason for that is because we've got Ara takes 1 second to say that first phrase, and then 2 seconds to say her name. And then Deedee waits only 1 second. And so what we want is we want Deedee to actually wait about 3 seconds. And so we're going to go ahead and change that. And so if I run that again, hello, my name is Ara, I'm Deedee, then we now have success on that. Great. So now um, we can jump back to Ara, and then Ara can sort of give us a what's the plan for this game, and then we can have Deedee sort of. Well, then we'll do some more controls for Deedee because Deedee is going to move back and forth. And so what we can do now is, so while Deedee was talking, maybe we'll have Ara not talk. So we'll have a little bit of a wait in here, and I think Deedee was talking for 2 seconds. So we can put 2, we can put like a little bit more so that there is that little bit of a wait time in there. And then we can say in here, Deedee and I are trying to catch all the falling stars. Or something like that. Like, can you help us? Or something like that. I'm just going to write it. Um, yeah, can you help? And so here, because she might, this is going to take a longer to read. Let's maybe put 4 seconds. I think it'd be good enough. So let's run that and see what we get. My name is Ara. I'm Deedee. Deedee and I are trying to catch the falling stars. Can you help? Yeah, I think that was good. I sort of mumbled way through it, but again, like not often do people read out loud while they're playing. So now what we can do is then we can have Deedee start to be that game part of things. And so the way that we can sort of activate Deedee's controls, there's a couple ways. We can have it sort of wait here until we do it. The other option and a way of sort of keeping it nice and tidy is we can have Aura sort of send a message and say, okay, you can now become a game. And so we can use this broadcast. And so we're going to broadcast over the word game. And this broadcast is a communication to all the sprites and the background if we want. And so it has all those communications. And so Deedee, we can then use Deedee that when I receive game, now I can start being a controller. All right, if we want to. So again, or we can have Deedee, like I said, start to become a controller right away based on this, and maybe that's what we'll do. But for our falling stars, they will probably want this receive game because they're not going to fall right away. All right, so I'm going to actually get rid of this one, and then I'm going to start to control our Deedee. So number one, we probably want to have Deedee start in some location, and we can start in the middle. We can start over here, over here, over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have Deedee start in the very middle. So the X position will be 0. So our X position we have from on the negative side on the left, and on the right side is positive. And so if I just go here, I'm going to put 0, 0, and so you'll see that this is the center. And so the X is our left and right, and the Y is our up and down. And so I want Deedee to go to the center, and then I want Deedee to sort of be on the close to the bottom here. We don't need to necessarily see the wheel, but something about minus 130, minus 120. Let's see what happens. So I do this. And then there we are. So Deedee's all ready to go. One thing that I can do that maybe is sort of fun is have a little bit of a sound. So Deedee comes with a sound. So if I click on this, you might be able to hear. I can't remember if I'm capturing the sound or not. But it's a fun little sound, and so it's like I'm ready to go. Let's do it. And so what we want to do now is we want to start making our robot move back and forth. And the way to get our robot to move back and forth is we're going to start using some control statements. And so we need to use a statement that if we're touching the left key, move left. If we're touching the right key, move right. So we can go into our sensing. So we've got our if statement. And then now you'll see about halfway down, we've got this key pressed. And so this space is the space bar, but we're going to use the left and the right arrows. And so if we move the right arrow, we want to move to the right. So I'm going to say change the X in a positive direction. So the right is positive. We just learned that. And so I'm going to start off with 10 for now. That's sort of the default. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just duplicate this because we're going to do the exact same thing for the left. So if I just right click, goes duplicate, it will duplicate all of the blocks of code below that. So now we're ready to go. So if I use my keyboard left and right, oh, I've got to update these ones. So this is left, and left is a -10. So when I ran that, you'll see that it sort of highlighted yellow, or well, I can do it right now. It highlights yellow to show you that it's running this code. And so we heard that. It goes to that location that it only, so these two questions, it asks it very quickly and then it stops running. And so what we need to do is sort of ask this over and over again. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this within a loop. And so a control structure that we can use is for repeating something. So it's like asking a question over and over again. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Or for this case, in computer programming, is the right arrow pressed? Is the right arrow pressed? Is the right arrow pressed? And then is the left arrow pressed? Is the left arrow pressed? And so with that, we can figure out, okay, if it is, then we can move back and forth. So let's run that again. And so now, if I move my arrows back and forth, I can see me moving my robot. Great. So now that we've got our robot moving back and forth, depending on how you would like your robot, or again, you can have different costumes in here. I would definitely invite you to explore with those different costumes. One thing that you might want, or you'll notice, is when you start exploring with these costumes, for example, this costume, and we go back and forth, the costume doesn't flip, or it always looks like it's looking to the right. So we want to make sure that we are sort of moving based on this. Now, if you pick that sprite that doesn't have a left or a right direction or look to it, then you don't have to worry about this. But for those of you that do, there's three little blocks that you're going to add to it. So the first block is you're going to tell your sprite that you're going to set a rotation style. And so that rotation style is based on how you want, in this case, Deedee to look. If you want Deedee to only be looking left and right, so on that horizontal plane, or if you're okay with Deedee looking up or down or all in the 360 degrees, you can use the all around. If you don't want Deedee to move or rotate, sorry, you just use don't rotate. And again, depending on which blocks you're using, or what project you're doing. So for this case, we're going to put set rotation style. So that's just something at the very beginning. We wanted to set it up. This is what it is. And now I'm going to go into it, and here's the block that we need, the point in direction. And so we need the point in direction, and it doesn't matter if it's before or after. This will either move and then point, or point and then move. So it's really the same sort of thing. Because this code happens so quickly, it's really hard to tell the difference. So if I just make it nice and big, I'm going to run it again. So I can now move back and forth. Oh, I realized a mistake that I made or omitted is that we want left, we want it to be pointing -90 and right to be +90. Now we can check that by looking here and seeing what's happening or what Deedee is looking like. So Deedee actually looks to the left when it's +90 and looks to the right when it's -90. And so that's again part of the costume. It's a little bit of a sneaky thing. So we need this to be +90. So it's a little bit backwards. But again, it's how the costume looks in the background here. And so if I use my arrow, there we go. All right, so we're good. Now we've got our stars. So our stars are going to be a little bit more complex to code, but it shouldn't be too hard. All right. So first of all, what we need to do is we're going to have our stars. We need the star to be hidden at the beginning because what we're going to have to do is we sort of have a primary star or our main star, and then that star is going to make clones. It's going to like throw other stars down, and that way we don't have to have 20 or 30 different stars. We can just sort of use this one, and we're making it easier for ourselves. And if you want your game to have 5 stars at a time or 50 stars at a time, you just have to change one little number and everything will work. So we're going to start off that at the beginning of our program. So again, green flag clicked. We're going to do looks. So again, we're going to be hiding it. Now, whenever I do something with hide, I always bring out show and have it just float around. I'm not going to attach it to anything yet, just because I don't want to forget to show it, because if I run my code, I'll never see it, even though it might be running in the background for whatever I do in terms of when I receive game. But I want to make sure that I can see what's going on or have an idea of what's going on. So the next thing I want to do is I have my my star, and essentially I want to create clones. Okay, so that clone is how we have that ability to throw down ourselves, essentially, or create ourselves. And so that's in our control. And we're going to go create clone of myself. And again, when I create my clone, they sort of come in pairs. I want to bring in this other one as well. So when I start a clone, I want this to happen now. So it's similar to, when I start the green flag, when I do this, we're going to have something going on. All right. And so here we can say maybe, repeat when I receive game, repeat 10 times. So create a clone of myself. And here, instead of creating a clone right on top, and then when I create a clone, let's do show. So we'll just start off. So we'll run the game. And then there we go. So now I have 10 clones right here. So it's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There we are. So there's the 10 of them. Okay? But they didn't do anything. They just sit there. Well, which is what we coded them to do. So what we need to do is we need to go in here and tell it to do some stuff. So we need it to move. We need it to carry on with what it's doing. So, or to essentially go down. So we're going to have this when I start a clone, we're going to want to show it, and then we can start to have it move down. So let's do that. So we can go into motion, and we can change our Y direction by 10. We can go by, or not 10, we're going to go down, so that's a negative. So we're going to go maybe -8. Could be an option. Again, it sort of depends on the speed and how fast you want to go. So let's try that. Now this will only go one. It will only go down once. So if you'll see that it didn't really move down. It only changed by. We want it to continue to move down, and maybe we can have it continue to move down until it touches here. And so while we use the forever before, we want to use the forever until, or this repeat until. And so we can say repeat until a certain aspect is there for us. And so we want us to if it's sort of touching the bottom or very close to the bottom. And so what we can do is we can find out the position or the location of it. And so there's in here in the motion, there's the X and the Y position of it. And so we're going to say that when the Y position is very close down here, we're going to delete it. So that would be essentially like if Deedee misses it, we're going to delete it. All right. So we've got our Y position, and if the Y position is greater than or less than a certain value. And so we're going to say the Y position is less than 150. So let's see what happens. I'll just make this bigger. All right, so it happens, but not exactly what we wanted. Like they all came together, and they're all sort of sitting there. So we want, well, there's a couple things that happened here. So we want to make sure that there's a little bit of variety to where they are, and we want to get rid of them when they hit the bottom here. So getting rid of them at the bottom is quite simple, and you might have noticed it when we were in here. We can delete this clone. So we're going to delete this clone. And then that variability is based on when we create the clone. And so we can move the location or pick a random location for it to be created. And so that's where we go back into motion, go to, and we know we want it to start at 180. That's right at the top. So again, our original is up here. It's just hidden right there. But these are our clones down here. And so we wanted to go to a random location along here. And so we can go into our operators and pick random. And again, our sort of biggest width is -240 to 240. So I'm going to go a little bit smaller than that, just so that we can explore with that. All right. So let's run our code again, so that we can see what happens with our stars now. Awesome. Well, awesome, or a little bit more awesome, I guess you can say, is they're not on top of each other, but they're way too fast. I can't catch them all, and that's difficult for me to do that. And so what I want to do is I want to have a little bit, instead of this creating it, it creates it as fast as it can, let's slow this down a little bit. And so in our control, we can, just grab that, we can wait a second, or if I want to be creative, I can wait a random amount of seconds. So I can say sort of like between half a second and 1.5 seconds. And there we go. So if I just click on this block, you'll see what will happen here. And so now it's a little more reasonable, so I can sort of move back and forth and catch those stars. So let's just do that again. So if I run that, I think I'm fast. I don't know if I'm not the greatest gamer, but at least Deedee is able to somewhat move and collect them. But Deedee's not collecting them right now because there's no interaction between Deedee and the stars. And so we need to add that in here. So we just go into our, now this is where it's moving. And so we just go into our control and say, have a little if statement. So if we're touching, and so this is touching the mouse pointer, but we can also use edge and the sprites that are in there. So we're going to say Deedee. Then we can say delete this clone. So then it gets deleted right away. And then we're good. So let's run it from the beginning. Oh, I'll move it back and forth. Oh, there we are. Oh, I missed that one. Can I do it? Oh. Now, looks good. I'm happy with it so far. The next thing we can do is we can start to say have a score. And this is where it can get fun is when each time Deedee touches one of the stars, now I can get a bigger score. All right? So if I go into variables, and so a variable is a container that's going to store something for me. And so in this case, I'm going to have a score, as long as I can spell it correctly. So I'm now going to change the score by 1 if I touch Deedee. Now, just like we had sort of things coming in pairs, we also want the score to come in pairs. So the score will be changed. That means probably at the beginning of my game, I'm going to set the score. Whoops, that was the wrong block. I'm going to set the score to 0. And so every time Deedee touches, maybe I can move my score over here. Every time Deedee touches a star, we can change. Oh, I know that there's 2 more because I ran. Oh, I missed it. So I missed one. So my score is 9, and remember that my loop was going for 10. And so this is where I said before, if you want to go for 5 or for 50, go big or go home, right? You just change it there, and we're good to go. And that's pretty well it. If you want me to do some more demos or extensions, I think I'm going to do an extension adding some a timer in here so that you've got to catch as many in a certain time limit. So that's my. I'll promise to link it in the description below. And if there's any other requests, please let me know. I'm excited to share and learn. I'm trying to pay attention while I'm doing this. I'm doing an okay job, but some of them are hard. But yeah, so I'm excited to share this with you and want to see your remixes. Just share them in the description or tag me on Twitter if you want to share those. So super excited to see your final projects and happy scratching. Looks like I only missed 2. All right, thanks very much and code on.